Well, Ryan McMahon, welcome to the Steven Skinner podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Steven.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you are our county executive, and it's an honor to have you. And, you know, a few weeks ago, I got to see you on stage at the Palace Theater, Leadership Greater Syracuse. You shared your backstory. But I was thinking to myself, does anyone not know the face of Ryan McMahon the past 4 years? Again, I'm sure you did not anticipate taking us through a international pandemic in this county here. Did you think going into your first full 4 years that would be anything of the sort of that?
No, actually, many people probably didn't know what the county executive actually did. We've only had three previously to myself, John Mulroy, Nick Pirro, and then Joni Mahoney.
Yes.
Look, we got through, I was appointed to the job by my colleagues, filling the remainder of Joni Mahoney's third term for a year. Went through 2019, went through an election, got elected. We were really pumped. We went right away. We started to work to build alliances and partnerships, specifically with Microsoft, and then we got a sense, with understanding what was going on in the world. Mm-hmm. And I tell this story as we went to Seattle, Washington, and we met with Microsoft, the city of Syracuse, myself, some of my team, about this digital alliance that we had at the time. And how can we, firm that up? How can we get Microsoft here, bricks and mortar? And then from there, I went down to Washington, D.C. for the National Association of Counties. It has a gathering. So you have all of my peers from across the country. And I was I was on a panel talking about our early childhood investments, and we're being recognized nationally as leaders in early childhood investments. And one of the county executives who was supposed to be on there was County Executive Constantine from Kings County, Washington, just where I was. I was just in his county like a week before. And he got to the conference, he took a phone call, and then he left. And so after the panel, we're like, what happened to him? Where was he? And they said that was when the first cases of COVID hit the West Coast in that Seattle nursing home, which was really the first documented cases. Mm-hmm. And so the conference shifted immediately from that of, quite frankly, I don't even remember what we were going to talk about, to all COVID and what is this? And you had, the CDC there. The White House recognized that New York State would be impacted differently. Immediately, leaders from New York State met at the White House with different emergency management folks, and we got back, and then we started to plan and prepare for what we didn't know what was going to happen. And I did not know that what was about to happen would happen, where essentially we would be responsible for a public health crisis response. And then as things were going, and you were getting through the pandemic, there was different things that happened every day, and you had to build up great partnerships, build out infrastructure to serve your community, and it was amazing. But we always knew we'd get through it, and part of what we did is we planned for the future, and that was kind of the second half of our first term.
I mean, again, just hearing that, and I'm thinking again, we're almost so post now, we don't really think about what everything was just 2 years ago, even how life was so different. And I mean, you were on camera. I mean, didn't you almost do a daily? For how long did you do a daily, like I call it a health briefing or something like that? Was it almost every day?
We did it every day. And just to give people the perspective, my team, I had a core team. Remember, there was a lot of isolation, remote work for a period of time. People weren't doing much. We had a core team that came every day and worked every single day. About public health response, right, and the various things that were required there. But then you had government, the state government essentially shut business down, and then they had, essentially phasing in and phasing out. Remember the zones we were in, 1, 2, 3, or 4, or phases. So every day we were dealing with public health. We were then dealing with economic health of the community, and we were the front lines. We were on TV every day. So I heard from the business community every day, desperate. How are we going to survive? What can we do to survive? We got to get open. And you carried that burden with you too. People were scared to get sick, people who were sick, making sure your medical infrastructure was there. But then you had the economic burden. And this went on, and that was tough. I mean, and people want to forget it because it sucked. And so I get it, but no administration in the county's history is as tested as ours, and that's just a hard stop. No. We know what pressure is. We know how to deal with pressure. We know how to plan. And you need that experience. That experience is so valuable as you transition into what we're facing moving forward with the amazing opportunities.
So, I mean, again, no one gives you a manual when you ran for office and when you got elected. No one gives you a manual. Oh, by the way, you're going to have all these things happen here, and to prepare a team for that. And it is remarkable. I think about the fact that probably how many people, even especially for seniors, watching their TV every night, looking for our county executive come on, give them some glimmer, just a glimmer of hope. And so I'm thinking to myself, this is leadership. So then I got to read a awesome article about your life, just about what happened over the last 4 years on Syracuse.com, sharing about just even the toll just on yourself, family, just health. And one of the statements that, and maybe they highlighted it, but it stood out to me regardless, is that because you weren't there knocking any opponent, you weren't there trying to trash anyone, but you instead said, this election is a referendum on myself. Can you share with our listeners today, what does a referendum on yourself look like for this upcoming election?
Yeah, I think overall that's what this election is. It's an election on leadership. It's election on performance. It's an election on vision moving forward. And then all of that is going to equal what we need to do in execution, right? So overall, nobody's gone through what we've gone through over the last 4 years. It's been crazy, right? Mm-hmm. So, did you rise to the ultimate leadership opportunity during the pandemic, right? Because people want to move on from that, but that's a good question to ask, and I think for the most part, most people would say that we did. Mm-hmm. Did you perform as a manager of county government, your core departments? Because people forget, I'm in charge of a $1.5 billion operation. Mm-hmm. We have over 3,000 employees. We do 30 different things, right? So it's not just like you're making one or two products or one or two services. The diversity of services that we're responsible for is amazing. So did you perform with your core functions? Did you still pave the roads? Did the toilets still flush? Did your parks still get invested and get cleaned? Did you manage it properly, right? Are you fiscally healthy? And the reality is we've never been fiscally stronger. Our reserves are 3 times higher than they were when I became county executive. We've cut the county tax rate 28%. That's awesome. And so that's performance, right? Vision. Mm-hmm. Do you have a vision for the future of this community? And the second part of our first term is we put forward a robust recovery plan from COVID. And that plan focused in on looking at what we knew would be some lagering impacts, right? Mental health in our community, the impact on our kids. Our kids lost a lot during this, and we put up mental health clinics in every school. Continuing to invest in early childhood, right? Continuing to invest with our partners who serve the poor, new men's shelter, Catholic Charity, right? These are all things. But then how do you modernize your infrastructure? We knew that the digital divide was real. Now we put forward a plan to expand access, to get rid of that problem from an access standpoint. $13 million project, we put forward with that. We've paved more roads, we fixed more bridges than we ever had before. But the one thing we did, and Stephen, this is where I think people need to understand, we were aspirational about our community's potential and our ability to compete. And I believe we can compete with anybody in any part of this country or internationally because we have so many assets here that are undervalued. And we said that we learned during COVID that the repatriating of making things in our country was going to be necessary. And it started out with personal protective equipment. It started out with medical infrastructure. It started out with pharmaceuticals. But as things move on, the real repatriatization of products needs to be in technology. And so we had this asset, the White Pine Business Park, which we've had in county government since 1999. But we never did enough to turn this into the asset that it should be. And we turned White Pine from a 300-acre site into a shovel-ready site, over 1,400 acres, the country's newest mega site. And we did it before we had a prospect, because we knew by doing that, we had a story to tell, and we could tell our story, our community story. And people try to say that Well, that was easy. The reality is that was the hardest part of this whole selection process because we had to do it with local dollars, and we were asking for friends, and we had some. And think about this in life. When you have success,
Yes.
you always make more friends, right? There's always friends. But the friends that were with you when you weren't successful, those are the ones you remember. And in the beginning of that process, we had some county legislators and we had the town of Clay officials. They were with us, right? And eventually, once we create the best mega site in North America, we got lots of friends then, right? And so that White Pine investment was the most ambitious thing that any administration could have done. It's the reason why Micron is here. But people need to remember, it wasn't like Micron was coming and they said, we're going to come if you create a site. We created a site, and we actually worked with the Intel Corporation longer than we worked with Micron. It was just we created the best site, and that created competition within the semiconductor industry to want to be here. And that's vision, right? And so now it's about execution on that vision. Now, how are we going to execute? Because we're going to be a growing community. And some of the challenges we have today, they're going to get a little bit stronger. And we need those same partnerships that we built. We need to double down on those, and we need to execute on those so that we can develop in a smart way through center-driven growth, right? We create the housing we need.
Yes.
We continue to be aspirational about how we're going to move in this growing community with transportation and how we're going to continue to invest in the things that really make us unique and different. Our green spaces in upstate New York and our blueways, not just from a water usage, but a recreational usage and access, are stronger in this region of this country than anywhere else. And we take it for granted. But we won't anymore because we have validation from the greatest memory technology company in the world, Micron, that this is the place to be. This is the place where that company is making its biggest bet in its company's history.
I mean, you think about, and I hear the numbers, again, I've heard these numbers of $100 billion. Does anyone really grasp? Because I mean, I think about other projects we've had in the county, and they're great. But we're lucky if anything comes 1/200th or 1,000th the same size. I don't even think this county even understands what a blessing it is to have a project of this magnitude here. And then don't you, just like what you just said, they may not have been friends a long time ago, but now you're going to have more and more friends. Don't you think this is going to lead to other industries coming to the area because of our infrastructure that we have in place because of Micron coming?
It will, because the same reasons why Micron chose us will make sense for other companies, right? And the reality is, with more people growing, it just makes a business sense for other folks to come in. And so the Micron investment, $100 billion, that's the largest investment in the history of the United States. Okay, so
it's amazing.
Like the best, right? We beat Austin, we beat Phoenix, we beat Raleigh, right? We beat these fast emerging communities, and that's where we're going. But that infrastructure, those natural resources, are going to bode well. And to put it in perspective, like, let's do this. So, I did the largest deal in the county's history before this with Amazon, $420 million capex, largest in our community's history. Compared to $100 billion, it's a bodega store. And so
it's exactly what I was thinking to myself. Like, it's so the magnitude.
And remember, Amazon was by far the largest, right? Later this week, today's Monday, I think. Today's Monday. Later this week, we will be announcing another 9-figure investment. The third or fourth largest in our community's history, right? So that's where we're going. We tease ourselves some of the other economic successes that we've had. Lotte Biologics coming back and revitalizing the old Bristol Myers plant, $75 million investment. 4 years ago, that would have been front page news.
It's still a great thing,
month,
exactly.
Right? For a month.
Yep.
They don't get any swag now.
No.
We love Lotte, right? We appreciate everything. We're going to make sure they're successful. We talked a lot about the JMA investment, right? JMA invested in the Clay facility, Henry Clay Boulevard, fantastic success. They buy a company out of Texas, move it here into the coin factory down on the south side, creating one of the greatest high-tech 5G campuses in the country, right? Almost $80 million, right? Huge successes, right? Huge successes. When you look at companies like Cryomac, their second expansion since I've been county executive, Tessie Plastics, Ultra Dairy, all these great companies doing things here. Then you have Amazon, right? It kind of dwarfs that. And now you got Micron. It's just, it's insane with what's happening. And I think overall, when I ran, we said our platform and how we're going to make decisions in county government with our spending plan and our policy. It's got to fit in with this platform. It's got to talk. We have to figure in poverty, how we remove barriers to employment for people, how we're going to modernize our infrastructure because we know that's going to create jobs, and then economic development strategies, right? And everything we've done with that, the greatest thing that we could ever do to address poverty rates in this community is the jobs.
Yes.
Because
100%.
poverty is a symptom of a lack of economic opportunity.
Sure.
And now we have the jobs. We could do, Steve, we could do everything right? We can create every program right. We can graduate every kid. But all we're doing then, if we don't have the jobs here, is we're developing a workforce for someone else. Right? And so we've done a pretty good job at that over the years, right? We haven't done a strong enough job because our underserved communities haven't felt it, right? A lot of our minority communities, our communities of color, a lot of our rural communities haven't felt that pipeline, but we're going to be very intentional now. But those jobs give us the ability to go into these communities of color, to go into our rural communities and say, this is where you're going to work, young man and young the little girls. We need to get you the programs you need. You need to stay in school, and boom. Without those jobs, it's harder to have those conversations.
No, it's absolutely true. And you know what? The thing I too love about your leadership is that you haven't just. Some people would be like, "Well, good. It's going to be hard to top Micron. Obviously, if you top that, wow, I'll have money on that one." No, but the fact that you have been leading in all areas and all, because you're like, again, you're the mayor of all the towns, and so you have been making sure that I've been seeing different development projects pop up throughout the entire county, which is, I think, another sign of great strength. And then also, again, I'm a big city dweller. I live right here in the city of Syracuse, so relationship with our mayor is also strong, right? I even read on the article.
And that isn't always been the case, right, in recent history or forever, quite frankly. The mayor and I, we grew up not too far from each other in the Strathmore neighborhood, and I'm a city guy at heart, and lived in the city the majority of my life, super majority of my life. And so it means a lot to me, right? These neighborhoods mean a lot. I was a city councilor, then I was the chairman of the county legislature. Now as county executive, I represent everybody. I represent the city. I represent the 19 towns and 15 villages. And so my job is to make sure that when we're making investments and bets, that we're doing it in a way that's going to create progress, but also it's better when you have partners. And so the mayor and I, that partnership there, that allows us to go and co-invest with the city. It allows us to maybe take a lead on a project in the city, and the mayor doesn't feel like we're stepping on his toes in that scenario. And that's important, right? Because the more the city is your center. And that doesn't mean that we won't have emerging centers. We will. The town of Clay is going to be an emerging center. Town of Cicero will be an emerging center. Lysander, Van Buren potentially. But your downtown is your best example of your center, right? Then you have these great business districts, Eastwood, James Street, right? Unbelievable business district with so much potential. You take that success, right? You take that recipe and then you replicate it. And one of the things that our comprehensive plan talks about is center-driven development. Main Street, business districts, town centers, hamlets, right? And so we've actually created a Main Street program where we've invested $13 million of county funds to go into these village main streets, city corridors, and work with the private sector. And from that, we've seen a $26 million investment with private sector and public dollars revitalizing these main streets, making them the attractive centers. And that helps housing, and that helps crime. It helps everything when you do that.
No, it's awesome. Just thinking about when you talk again, you're not just talking as one is just sharing information. You're passionate, and I think for not every listener out there, but that referendum on yourself is that. Do we believe Ryan McMahon has energy and passion? And you have both. I mean, you score tens in all that area, not just by what you've done, but the way you live every single day. You have taken where some people will be like, okay, I just live here and I've taken for granted this county. No, you actually have pulled out and said, you know what? We have beauty here. We have rivers here. We have streams here. We have lakes here. We have all these beautiful terrain here. And you're hopefully putting Onondaga County even more on the map where, again, I want to be in a city where my kids can not say, like it seems like it's almost every generation, where else can you go get a job, son or daughter? Where else you can go and get a place? How about stay right here? Stay in Syracuse. Stay in Onondaga County. Raise a family here. It's an amazing area, and I'm glad your fire is definitely there. You have caught on to that. So Any last thought for our listeners that you would say, hey, this is just something I want you to know about Ryan McMahon or about the future of Onondaga County that you want to share with people?
Yeah, look, I think the important thing moving forward is psychology, right? And so a lot of the residents have seen some bad things happen over the period of time, right? Carrier started on South Geddes Street, still has a lot of research jobs here, but the manufacturing jobs left. Chrysler, GM, GE, right? The manufacturing left. We've brought that back plus, right? And so, first thing, we are worthy of good things in this community, right? We are good people.
Absolutely.
We work hard. We're worthy of good things, right? The psychology that we're not needs to stop, right? We need to start believing that the glass is half full again, because it is, right? And so, once you start that, then once people feel they're invested and there's hope, it's contagious. And we are on a comeback. We were on a comeback before Micron, right? Things where population was growing. We were solving problems. We were cutting taxes. We're seeing jobs come. Now we've had the ultimate validation. Central New York is on the map. Not just in New York State. Everybody knows what's going on here, and they're all jealous, right? But in the Northeast, in North America, in the world. We have foreign governments that I'm meeting with that want to invest. They want to be part of this. They want us to go there and tell our story, right? Throughout the country, people want to know, how did Onondaga County pull this off, right? And that story isn't my story. That's your story, right? Because success has 1,000 authors, and everybody should feel like they're part of this, because that's the comeback story that we're living right now.
Well, again, I just appreciate you so much coming on our podcast today, sharing again your vision, your heart, the future of Onondaga County. I wish you the absolute best.
Thanks, Stephen. Appreciate it.
No problem.